A political earthquake just struck Washington. The Supreme Court has struck down President Trump's sweeping tariff plan. The verdict: the president's broad taxes on foreign goods are illegal. This dismantles a core pillar of his economic agenda and sends shockwaves through the Capitol. Markets reacted instantly, and political circles erupted in chaos. The ruling challenges the very limits of presidential power. After months of legal battles, the nation finally has an answer. The tariffs had divided politicians, business leaders, and everyday Americans. Now, the highest court has drawn a firm line. The president cannot impose massive taxes without Congress. This is about more than trade. It's about the balance of power in government. The decision affects prices, jobs, and the entire economy. Some celebrate it as a victory for the rule of law. Others call it a blow to national security. President Trump's reaction was swift and furious, denouncing the justices and calling the decision a betrayal. The central question: can a president use emergency powers to set taxes for the entire country? The Supreme Court's answer: no. This sets a new precedent for presidential authority. It reasserts Congress's role in trade and taxation. As the dust settles, the nation faces profound uncertainty. What happens to the billions already collected? What does this mean for America's global relationships? The chaos has only just begun. Washington is left to grapple with the consequences. To understand the chaos, we must understand the tariffs. President Trump unveiled the Liberation Day tariffs in April 2025. The plan imposed at least a 10% tax on most imported goods, affecting nearly the entire world. The administration claimed it would protect American industries and bring jobs back. Tariff rates varied. China faced up to 145%, Canada 35%, Mexico 25%. Businesses relying on imports saw costs skyrocket. Retailers had to choose absorb costs or raise prices. Most passed the cost to consumers. Prices climbed. American families paid more for everyday items. The tariffs hit everything from electronics to auto parts. The administration argued other countries would pay, but economists disagreed. Tariffs are paid by American importers, who pass costs to consumers. It was a tax on Americans, paid by Americans. In 1 year, tariffs generated $195 billion in revenue, a hidden tax on the economy. Small businesses faced devastation. Manufacturers rethought supply chains. The Liberation Day tariffs were an economic shockwave. They reordered American commerce and set the stage for a legal showdown. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. The nation braced for the next battle. The legal fight was inevitable. The legal challenge began with American businesses hit hard by the tariffs. Victor Owen Schwartz, a New York importer, led the charge, arguing the tariffs were an illegal tax. Businesses sued the federal government, taking the case to court. Their argument: the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to tax and regulate commerce. President Trump, they said, had overstepped his authority. The law he used, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, was never meant for this. Lower courts largely sided with the businesses, finding the president exceeded his authority. But the administration appealed, sending the case to the Supreme Court. The key question: does IEEPA allow a president to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly all imports? The law was designed for sanctions on hostile nations, not for taxing allies. The administration argued trade imbalances and fentanyl were national emergencies. The challenger said this was a dangerous overreach. The Supreme Court had to decide if the president's interpretation of the law was correct. The fate of the tariffs and presidential power hung in the balance. The stakes could not have been higher. The Supreme Court heard two starkly different arguments. The Trump administration claimed the tariffs were essential for national security. Solicitor General D. John Sauer warned of catastrophic consequences if the tariffs were struck down. The administration argued that emergencies like unfair trade and fentanyl required swift presidential action. They insisted IEEPA was flexible enough to allow these tariffs. On the other side, the challengers argued this was about the power to tax, not foreign policy. Supported by a broad coalition, they reminded the court that only Congress can levy taxes. The Constitution was clear: taxation without representation is unacceptable. The IEEPA law was meant for sanctions, not for creating a nationwide tax system. Michael McConnell, co-counsel for the challengers, said the law was never intended for taxing Americans trading with allies. The challengers argued the president was using a national security law for economic policy. This, they said, was a dangerous overreach threatening the government structure. The Supreme Court faced a fundamental question: security or constitutional limits? The answer would define the boundaries of presidential power. The nation waited for the verdict. The stakes were historic. The Supreme Court delivered its answer in a decisive 6-3 ruling. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. President Trump exceeded his authority. The Liberation Day tariffs were declared illegal. The court ruled IEEPA could not be used for such sweeping tariffs. If Congress intended to give the president this power, it would have said so. The decision focused on separation of powers. Only Congress can tax and regulate foreign commerce. The court invoked the major questions: doctrine. Major economic actions need clear congressional approval. Allowing the president to use emergency law for taxes would rewrite the Constitution. The dissenting justices argued for presidential flexibility and national security, but the majority prevailed. The decision is a firm rebuke to executive overreach. Even in complex times, the president is not a king. He is bound by the Constitution. The ruling reaffirms Congress's authority. The reaction was immediate and intense. President Trump erupted on social media, accusing the court of betraying American workers. He vowed to find new ways to punish unfair traders. Business groups celebrated, calling it a victory for stability and the rule of law. Victor Owen Schwartz, who led the legal fight, felt vindicated. For the public, confusion reigned. Would prices drop? Would the government refund billions? The legal complexity left many Americans uncertain about the impact. Politically, the ruling deepened divides. Trump's allies promised new legislation to restore presidential power. Opponents praised the court for upholding the Constitution. The decision became another front in the ongoing culture war. Unity was nowhere in sight. The ruling turned a legal question into a political firestorm. The nation was left with more questions than answers. Confusion, fury, and relief defined the day. The Supreme Court's decision has thrown trade policy into chaos. The tariffs are gone, but the economic and political fallout remains. International markets reacted with volatility. Foreign governments scrambled to respond. The old rules are gone, and new ones haven't been written. Politically, the decision ignited a firestorm. President Trump vowed to keep fighting, eyeing other trade laws for new tariffs. The war over trade and presidential authority is far from over. The ruling is now a rallying cry for both sides. It will be central in upcoming elections. The decision pushes back on expanding executive power. Future presidents are warned. Vague emergencies can't justify massive policies. Congress is reasserted as the primary lawmaker. The battle over presidential limits will continue. Businesses and consumers face uncertainty. The chaos is a symptom of a deeper debate about American power.